everybody. Welcome to the Faith and Fandom Artist Alley Aftermath podcast. This is Hector Mirai with Faith and Fandom. And today we are going to be going over Fayetteville Fan Fest, the inaugural edition of this event, and which Fayetteville Fan Fest is the let's say it's the reboot of Fayetteville Comic-Con, or the Legend of Korra to Fayetteville Comic-Con's Avatar: The Last Airbender. It is the byproduct of what was and potentially the step forward of what will be. But let me make a couple disclaimers out the gate. One, I was not personally there for the entire con. I was previously scheduled to do a wedding that weekend, back when it was announced that Fayetteville was not going to be existing at this point in time. I took a DJ gig, and it was a church family person that I couldn't, back out on. Not that I back out on DJ events in the first place, but it was one of those, there's not an option of not doing this type situation. But LJ, who is my friend, who does Poetry in Motion LLC, he does the Nerd Slam, he does Art Meets Life. He's if you've watched any of the Love Thy Nerd Faith and Fandom podcasts, there's an interview with him on all the stuff that he does. But he's somebody that I've had a large part in the Comic-Con community with for the better part of a decade. This is one of my biggest supporters artistically and stuff in the Fayetteville region. He joined on as one of the owners and proprietors and general purveyors of this Fayetteville show, along with Keith Gibbs, who took over the Fayetteville Comic-Con show originally from Mike Trotterelli. And they had a short window to put this show together. I can't remember exactly how long they've been working on it, but I will say that it is much less time than you would normally take to promote this show. And that was one of the things, is like, once LJ mentioned it to me about doing this show, he specifically asked me to do Geek Church. And because he's been to Geek Church at GalaxyCon Raleigh, he's seen what it's like for me to have a whole room full of people doing that. And he's seen those things. He's been a part of it, and he wanted to bring it to Fayetteville, and has not always been the easiest route in making Geek Church happen in Fayetteville. In fact, it only happened once in Fayetteville, and even then wasn't the smoothest scenario. But I've always felt that because Fayetteville is a local show, that a lot of people aren't staying overnight to go to Fayetteville other than vendors and artists. And so they're usually not the ones that are actually at the service. That it shows with overnight services and stuff like that, where people traveling for Sunday mornings that are more likely to be at a Geek Church service. But anyway, that's just been like a thought of mine on the concept of doing Geek Church in Fayetteville. But LJ was very insistent out the gate, and even technically I had used up all of my Sundays before this got booked. As a pastor, my congregation / church leadership allows me 5 Sundays a year to miss to do Comic-Cons. And I was already over by the time we got here. Like, I think I'd already missed 6 Sundays by the time LJ brought up doing Geek Church. And so he even went as far as booking Geek Church for 1 p.m. so that I could still be at my church enough to count. My church staff was also very they worked with me on it. If I'd had to miss the whole Sunday, they would have been okay. It would have just been, yeah, I've been gone a lot and gone through a lot lately, so it's been a lot to continually be absent. But that's the plan. So I did not actually vend at this show for real. I spent all of Saturday DJing and not at the show. So I cannot fully attest to how the whole show went. Also, I did not pay for a table. So I don't have an investment to speak to financially in this. They gave me a table as part of how I was going to promote the panel. I put a what I asked LJ initially was like, look, since I'm not going to be there, will you allow me to put up a table just so I can put up some signs for Geek Church and stuff, so people can see it coming. So yeah, Friday afternoon, I went to a wedding rehearsal and took my kids to this wedding rehearsal, and we left directly from the wedding rehearsal, from Fairmont, North Carolina, to Fayetteville, North Carolina, to go set up for the con, just because I wanted to make sure I have stuff when people came in on Saturday. And this was the absolute easiest setup of my actual life, con-wise. Even way easier than the first booth I ever put. Because all I had was a tablecloth, a triangle of my red grid squares, 2 signs that said Geek Church, the book listings, and like the little handouts in my business cards. So it was absolutely bare minimum. When I put my stuff down, I saw that I was next to Tim Showers. He's one of my favorite artists from the Charleston area. And on my other side was an Asian food market. And I went in, I ran into the Brothers Boyd on the way in. And I was only there for a few minutes before I went to kind of sit down and set up and everything. And I think we pulled in at 7:40 and setup closed at 8. So we weren't going to be there long anyway. Because I told my daughters I was going to take them to a haunted house in Fayetteville / Hope Mills called the Stony Point Trail of Terror. This was one of the only times that I was going to have all 3 of my girls together for a while, because I was picking up my daughter Rosa from someone who was driving her home from school. So it was a whole weird timing thing. Anyway, so that was my setup. That was my whole involvement for Friday and Saturday. Now, one thing I did see, because I was getting vendor emails and everything, was as I was DJing the wedding on Saturday, I got an email from Keith, who's one of the showrunners, sending it to the vendors that he was going to try and bring in more foot traffic by lowering the price on Sunday, like cutting the price on Sunday in half. Now, that's not a bad idea. That's not bad logistics. But for me, reading that from 50 miles away was concerning to me, just because I was like, oh no, they're not having a good show. I don't know that they weren't having a good show, and I've not honestly talked in a lot of detail. I know that traffic was lighter than they would have wanted. But here's the deal. You're starting a new show. You've got a ton of other stuff going on that weekend, the Dogwood Festival, lots of other stuff that's happening, and to be able to pull off a new show is hard. And we knew it would be. And they didn't have the time to promote as well as they wanted to, just because it's a long haul. It's a whole rodeo. I'm not knocking it, not complaining about it. I didn't financially invest in this, and they were more than gracious with me. So I got no beef in what they've done. But I know how hard it is to work this hard and feel like you're struggling to get the results. So Sunday morning comes. I go to my church, do all the setup, do all the normal stuff, like have a leaders meeting, do all the jazz. My youngest daughter, Carmen, has been asking forever that when there's a local Comic-Con that I take her friend Johanna and her to the con, because Johanna wants to go to a Comic-Con. And I'm always far away. There's not a lot of local shows and stuff. So I told Carmen I would take Johanna with us. And so Johanna got dropped off at church. We headed straight over to the con. And I'd already gotten my badges Friday night. So we walked in, we found our table, and this time I brought a few books and a handful of stickers, just to have it look like the booth was a little bit more occupied while I was there. I got there a little before noon, and my booth neighbor Tim Showers had moved, so I had that empty table next to me. I didn't put anything on it, but it was empty next to me. And so I set up the table, and then I go, and I can see LJ sitting at the table talking with his wife, Monica, from where I'm sitting. And so I get the booth set up. Johanna and Carmen are running around, and I go to talk to LJ and to find where my panel room is, because I know where it is normally. And LJ says, so there's been a thing somewhere in the booking and establishing of the space for the panels. Panel room 2 did not, or the divider between panel room 1 and panel room 2 did not get put up. So panel room 1 being like the main panel room, where there's always like a ton of people, and panel room 2 would be the smaller room, which panel room 2 would have been the appropriate sized room, definitely for Geek Church. Oh, sorry, it's a long day. But the dividing wall did not get put up. So basically we lost panel room 2. But there are panels other than mine scheduled for panel room 2, so they improvised. And panel room 2 moved to the bar. Now, when you hear me and understand what I'm saying, I'm an actual bar, a functional. There's a bar with a bartender serving alcoholic beverages to paying customers who were listening to music and chattering at loud volumes. Bar. So I walk in, and it's literally the whole to the left. Let's say the room is a whole rectangle. Half the rectangle is the bar and the stools and the people immediately drinking with a couple tables. The other half is a back section of chairs with a table, a TV, and a microphone. And that's where Geek Church is. No dividing walls. And I'm not kidding when I tell you this, that it was the space of my living room and dining room all together. Like, it's the space of a doctor's office lobby type space. And behind the back wall of it is an open air arena, like a hockey rink where they have the coliseums and the concerts and all that jazz. So I walk in, and it's just like, oh my, this is a whole thing. And LJ came in, and he showed me the microphones, and it was loud, y'all. It was super loud with the bar people chit chatting and the music playing and stuff. And he's like, look, here's your microphone. You can use it if you speak louder. And it was effectively like, if they're too loud at the bar, use the microphone to talk over them, was the vibe I was picking up on. And the bartender lady is literally blasting music and dancing. And he says, when you're ready to start, you can go tell the bartender and they'll turn the music off. What I did not want to do was be the dude preaching on a microphone over people at a bar trying to have a drink at noon on a Saturday. And I was just like, okay, Jesus, what's up? What are we doing today? And so, like, I pretty much out the gate. Like, by the way, y'all, I came in there with my kids carrying instruments. Like, I had worship PowerPoints. I was going to play guitar or ukulele and lead worship and sing and all this other stuff. And there was one lady who was there, and she was the first person there. And my friend my friend Josh was coming as well, and who's somebody I met in Georgia through Chris Poirier. And so the two of them were the first people there for Geek Church. Joshua Andrew Collins, and this lady who had seen Geek Church in Raleigh this past summer. And so I said, hey, I don't think I'm going to lead worship in this environment. And they're like, yeah, don't do that. And it was just so crazy because Geek Church in Raleigh was overflowing to where people were sitting on the floors in this summer. And then the next one she comes to, y'all, and just for the record, there were technically 4 people at Geek Church. But 2 of them were my daughter and her friend. So once I knew I wasn't going to be leading worship and didn't need someone clicking buttons, I dismissed my kids and my kid and her friend. And so it literally was where 2 or 3 are gathered. So we had Geek Church right there in the bar. Me, Josh, and the lady from Raleigh. And I really should have learned her name. If you're listening to this, I'm sorry I didn't learn your name better. And we went through the whole sermon together and discussion. And we did the not the faith of fandom, but the God is a fan of you discussion. And we talked about fandoms and talked Star Wars and Star Trek and Doctor Who and Ninja Turtles. And we had all these long conversations and we had a good discussion time together. But you could see the lady was visibly frustrated because it was hard to hear me over the people. And because it was a bar, people were coming in waves. And when they would come in waves, it'd be really, really loud. And then it would quiet down a smidge. And by the way, when I asked the lady at the bar to go ahead and turn the music down, she was so unhappy about it. And she didn't even turn it off. She just turned it down-ish. But it was hard to hear. It was hard to communicate. But it was still a good time together. And I was grateful for the 2 of them that stuck it out. And this past week, in between Boone and Fayetteville, was kind of a really weird week for Faith and Fandom in terms of technical success, air quotes. My photo from Boone Comic-Con technically went viral. For me, for Faith and Fandom, it went viral. It got 2,000 likes, 2,800 likes on just a photo of me at the booth. We gained 800 new followers, and the photo got viewed 90,000 times. And that was kind of like an ego inflator of like, okay, ooh boy, big numbers, keep myself in check. And then literally like within a week, I'm doing Geek Church with 2 people over the sounds of a crowded bar. It's like, all right, take me down a notch, humble chick. But it was a good experience and I was grateful for it. And I was there because a friend fought to have Geek Church at this event, provided me space, provided me a table, and the opportunity to do it. There were other people there who said they wanted to come, but weren't able to. I literally I left somebody from my own congregation at my table. I said, hey, I'm going to go do Geek Church. And they're like, okay, bye. I was like, oh, cool, you're not coming. Great. Um, but no, it was good, and it was a good conversation and doing that. Um, Beyond that, I brought a bag of goodies for the folks that were there. So each of them got like a bag that had stickers and a book and stuff in it. And I thanked them for coming. And then I went back to the booth, and I sat there at the booth. I sat there from previously from about 12 to 12:40, and then I sat there from 2 to 4 because I had to get my daughter back to youth. So as I went back to the booth, one of the things that happened is as I was walking by, Miss Karen, who is the Bronze Age Batgirl, said "Welcome home" to me because her first con appearance ever was at Fayetteville Comic Con next to me. So that was sweet. I saw that also, like I had mentioned, that they were doing half price on Sunday. They told that on Saturday. Around 12:30 on Sunday, they also sent out an email saying, and they advertised it on socials, that they were going to be doing quarter price on Sunday afternoon, so you could get into the show at $8 from 2 to 6 on Sunday. So it's pretty crazy. When I walked in, also there was a Dave Chappelle cosplayer who, like, the dude who's like feigning and like, you all got any more of them, like with the crusty lips and everything. There's a cosplay of that, which is actually pretty funny. I saw two 21 Pilots cosplayers, both dressed up like banditos, and I yelled at them, said, "Come here, I have stuff for you." And I gave them my 221 Pilot stickers, and we talked about the concerts and stuff like that and stuff that we love. And then like an hour later, both of those cosplayers showed back up with an actual video camera and asked me if they could ask me a question. And they asked me which was my favorite 21 Pilots song and what my name was. And I said, can I give you two answers? And I said, I think Car Radio is their best song, that it's the most perfectly executed packaged song to sum up who they are. And I said, but my favorite song is Navigating. But Trees is a close second, and Oldie Station is a close third. So all of that being said, but it was really nice talking to them. They're pretty cool guys. Yeah. And my friend Josh Collins, who had come there, Josh was in Columbus, Georgia, where Chris Poirier was. I met him at Bites and Brews at Chris's thing. He was part of Chris's small group. He relocated from Columbus, Georgia to Fayetteville, and was kind of getting adjusted to the Fayetteville scene. He was there in February when I featured for poetry in Fayetteville. I can think they had just moved there. But yeah, it's been a whole thing. And so he sat down with me at the booth, and we talked about life and ministry and art and family and everything else for the better part of an hour and some change. A person came up to the booth to say that they weren't Christian anymore, but they really appreciated what the booth stood for and what Faith and Fandom was. And it was an interesting conversation. And that person was wearing a him badge, and like was, to my understanding, was a trans male, and was in a relationship with a female, and the female literally was trying to pull this person away from the minute they stopped, like the whole time trying to yank them away. And you could see that this person was fighting to stay and have the conversation at the booth. And we had a good conversation, but like their partner was literally trying to rip them and get away from there as fast as humanly possible. And like I don't know if this person remembers the fact that the last Fayetteville Comic Con that I was at, like April 2024, we had a whole long conversation about faith, and like I don't think that they remembered that, but we did. And so it was a whole thing with that, but it was like one of those, okay, that's the conversation I was here for. But it was good opportunities, and I got to see some friends and family folk that I hadn't seen in a minute. And then as 4 o'clock came by, I needed to head out, and so I packed up my gear and started walking my way. And I stopped one of my friends who was an opera singer who always sings to the Power Rangers, which is what he'd been doing the whole time. And then I saw David Probus, who's one of my cosplay friends, who's also been on our podcast. And, just good experiences overall. Literally, I was only there 4 hours total. One of those hours was in Geek Church. I sold one book. But it was to Josh, who was just at Geek Church. A couple stickers too, but it was that one thing. And then I ran into LJ on the way out and thanked him and appreciated it. And then I was like, "Hey man, you gonna let me get that stylish Fayetteville Fan Fest hat?" And he totally gave it to me. I was joking with him, but he said he wouldn't be in cons like this if it wasn't for me in the first place, and so he gave me his hat. So I've got one of the original Fayetteville Fan Fest pieces of merchandise apparel. And so that's pretty cool. Overall, yeah, and also my daughter's friend bought nunchucks, which I felt like an irresponsible adult for letting a 12-year-old buy nunchucks at a con. But also, who sells nunchucks to a 12-year-old at a con? Good talk. But all that being said, I had a good time while I was there. I was appreciated, and I felt very grateful for LJ for giving me the opportunity to be there and for giving me table space and everything that goes with it. I can't speak to the whole volume of attendance or sales or anything like that because I wasn't there for that. And I don't think it would be fair for me to talk about that. Now, there are other vendors and artists and people like that who would say that, and I know that they had less traffic than they wanted to. That was something they communicated. But there's a Bible verse that I'm gonna pull it up because I didn't think about this ahead of time. It's Zechariah, which is why I didn't know it off the top of my head, because who knows Zechariah off the top of their head. Zechariah 4 verse 10. Do not despise these small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin, to see the plumb line in Zerubbabel's hand. And it's like, look, don't be mad when things start small. I think that's always an important thing. So I hope it continues to grow. I can say this wholeheartedly. Fayetteville needs a good Comic-Con, and there's no reason this can't be that good Comic-Con. Also, wrestling was happening very loudly and very passionately at this con. And so people were having a good old time with that as well. But yeah. So that's it. That's my review of the 4 hours I spent at Fayetteville Fan Fest. Before I go on and take a moment to thank our Patreon sponsors or Patreon supporters, because y'all literally make this possible. Jessica Luttrell from Cosplay for Christ, Jackie Kraft, Kelly Townsend, Alan Wallace, Fab Quack, Rivka and Tristan Birch, Dorothy Martin Winston, Michelle Stewart, Miss Lynn Turner, David Brooks, Jeff Weimer, Colin Sproles, Jamie Montgomery, the Coleman family, Jonathan Herman, Gear Saber Cosplay, Ron Petit, Scott Ward, who I missed apparently on Saturday at Fayetteville Fan Fest, Alicia Glenn, Jay Sheed, Jason Crutchfield, Mike Perna, Todd Turner, John Jacobs, who almost sat at the booth for me this weekend, but I didn't ask him because he had other ministry stuff to do. Zach Harris, Caleb Grimm, Jeanette Skaggs, Jason Bullock, Christina Ray, Sarah Lewis, Patrick Gale, Rebecca Godlove, Adam Davis, Sarah Lewis, Christina Ray, Sarah Lewis, right? All right, cool. Good talk. Thank you for all being the supporters that you are, for encouraging me all the ways that you do, and for helping make all these things possible. We have 2 events and appearances left for the year. We will be at Camp Grace in Fairmont, North Carolina for their Jamboree, which is a vendor event and worship night. It is going to be on November 15th. And then on November 22nd, I will be at Roco Comic-Con in Reidsville, North Carolina, where I'll be doing speaking and having the booth set up. And I think Fangirling Over Jesus is going to be there. Kingdom Geeks is going to be there, and maybe some others. But I want to say thank you all for taking time to listen, for encouraging, and I hope to see you all at a con real soon. Have a great day.